Hello and welcome to Reuzel Live. Today is June 16th, 2025. My name is Nicholas Giberson. Today we have an amazing class and a first-time appearance from Scumbassador Kody Ball out of Frederick, Maryland. Kody, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, hanging out. I heard you had a pretty eventful weekend. What you got going on?
Oh yeah, I cut with Idle Hand Collective at the Vans Warp Tour this weekend. The first one back since what, like 2018. It was a dream come true. It was amazing.
Awesome. Hey, tell me about what are we doing today? What you got going on?
I'm doing a classic pompadour. My client Ben here. We're demonstrating this haircut primarily with Clipper River comb. During the winter, Mr. Ben here, we do more of a Vanguard with scissors. But since it's summer, it's really hot out right now. He likes it a little bit shorter, but I still like to maintain the shape of the haircut and maintain it to his natural head shape. So we're going to be doing, like I said, most of this with Clipper River comb today. Leaving most of the length in the front cool hair section right there. So I've already got Ben prepared here. But the first thing we usually do when we start cutting the hair is we saturate it first. What we usually use when we're saturating is, yes, we use water, but we also mix in a little bit of the Reuzel the Reuzel hair tonic. Sorry. It's this little cool bottle right here. I mix it with the water until the water turns slightly blue. The reason I use this is because, for one, it smells great and it adds more for the client's experience. But two, it clarifies and breaks down any oils or products the clients may have. Mr. Ben here likes using a lot of oil-based pomades, and he comes in with a little bit left in his hair. So it lets me break it down and kind of play with the haircut a little bit. The first thing I'm going to be looking for is my primary parting. You can see I've already done it here, but I'm going to show you again. I start with a natural implant of the head and draw a line. And as you see here, it dips when it gets to the back of the head. The reason we do that is because we're trying to maintain length in the crown. A lot of the haircuts in the Reuzel Classic collection, with the exception of the flat top, maintain the length in the crown back here. Also, if you're going to put a line on a ball, it's going to dip down. So the first cut we're going to be doing on Mr. Ben here is our baseline cut. The baseline cut is the most important cut of the haircut because that's our guideline. You know, we like to work systematically with these haircuts, that way we don't get lost. I'm going to start right in the middle of the ear here. The reason I'm going to start in the middle of the ear here is because that's the flattest point of the head. With all the haircuts in the Classic collection, we're going to be working for a square shape. We can find the square shape by two different ways. We're going to put a comb right here in the flattest point of the head behind the ear, like I just said, and on the apex. And you can see here you get a perfect right angle. Or once you get a little more seasoned, you can just take your comb and bend it, and you'll see perfectly where the head rounds. Alrighty. Put his hair down a little bit more. When I'm doing my baseline section, I'm going to pretend that I'm balancing a marble on the hair that needs to be parallel to the floor. And I like to work my way back to the center section of the head. I don't like going all the way around because that decreases the room for error in the haircut. We're also following parallel to the natural parting I made already. Cool. I'll go ahead and demonstrate this on both sides for you. Do the baseline on both sides. Let me saturate Ben's hair here. Like I said, I'm going to find the ear, the center of the ear where the flattest point of the head is. Lift it up parallel to the floor like I'm balancing that marble. And work our way back. Now, this pompadour is a symmetrical haircut, meaning Ben can wear it straight up. He can slick it back. He can part it either way if he wants to. It has a lot of versatility to it. So now that I've got my baseline established, my guideline, I'm going to be looking for the hair that I've already cut. I'm not going to be looking for the hair that needs to be cut. I'm just going to be looking for the hair already be cut that needs to be cut. So I'm going to lift it up. I'm angling my comb in a little bit because we are creating a tapered shape. I'm going to keep working my way from this side, back, and that side, back. Very systematically. When I'm cutting, I'm very bad about posture sometimes. We all are. It's all right. But what I try to maintain the best I can is I keep my finger behind the blade here, and I like keep my elbows locked in front of me at all times. We're on our feet all day, every day. Some of us are doing this for minimum to 20 to 30 years. So we want these things, our body is our most important tool, and we want it to last as long as we can. There are a million ways to do haircuts. There's no right or wrong way. But here at Reuzel, we really, really like to use clipper over comb versus guards. If you like using guards, there's nothing wrong with that. Here at Reuzel, we just find using guards works better. We get a little more creativity in it, and also it helps us taper the haircut to the client's head shape a lot more properly. For example, my client Ben here, his occipital bone in the back here pops out very badly, very severely. So when I use clipper over comb versus a guard, it lets me kind of cover that up a little bit. The first part of this haircut that we're demonstrating right now is just the sketch. We're just removing bulk, getting the natural shape into it. And then once we dry and style the hair and stuff like that, that's when we'll do all the refining work. So just like on the other side, it's so nice we're going to do it twice. We're going to do the same thing on the other side here. So like I was saying at the beginning of the video, I got to cut hair at the Vans Warped Tour this weekend. It really was a dream come true. I used to do music. I still play guitar a little bit. I always wanted to play Warped Tour. It was a dream. It was a dream of mine, always. Even if I just got to do the Ernie Ball, which is the local Battle of the Band stage, I always wanted to do that, but it never worked out for me, and that's okay. You know, sometimes life doesn't play out the way you want to. Music didn't become my full-time job, and the Warped Tour ended back in 2018, I want to say. But the cool thing about the opportunity this weekend is the Idle Hand Collective group is really cool. It's so cool that like we have a way of mixing barbering and music together. It's something I've always wanted to do. It was one of my goals when I first got into cutting hair. And it's so cool that there's not a way for artists while they're on tour to get haircuts, because sometimes they're on the road for 2 to 3 months at a time and they can't get haircuts. But I met a lot of cool people yesterday. I got to cut a lot of cool people. One of the highlights was cutting the bass player from All Time Low, Zachary Merritt. We've got a lot of mutual friends because I'm about an hour from Baltimore. I did a boogie on him, which is one of the other Reuzel classic haircuts. The boogie is asymmetrical. It's parts on one side. I call it a one-trick pony haircut, but it does that trick really, really, really well. But like I said, on Mr. Ben today, we're doing a symmetrical haircut. So what I've been doing for the last couple seconds here is I've been going in, I already did all my bulk removal, but I've been going in and cross-checking. So as you see here, I was doing most of my haircut like this, following more, I guess you'd call this horizontal to diagonal sections, but then I was going back in the opposite way and double checking my work to make sure I had that nice tapered shape there. Life's short, you know, take your time, do thin sections. That way you can see your work better and go back in and cross check, you know. What's that expression? Measure twice, cut once. It applies to cutting hair too, not just construction. Put your hair down for me, Ben. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up a little bit of his neck, and then I'm going to go back in and do the taper on his neck when the hair is more dry. All the haircuts in the Reuzel Classic Collection have a tapered neckline. The tapered neckline just grows in so much more better. It looks more smooth. If you like a block neckline, I'm not judging, that's fine. But it does kind of come off, it looks like you did it yourself at home, you know. when doing this, Mr. Ben's tapered neckline, like I said, his occipital bone pops out really far. So it's just so much more easy to cover that up using clipper over comb. Alrighty, so I've got my sketch done on the sides of the hair. We're going to move into blending the top into the sides. So we have a couple sections on the top of the hair. If you find your two front corners right here and draw a triangle, that's what we like to call the cool hair section. That's where you're going to find all your pompadours, your flat tops, your slick backs. That's where the cool hair is. That's where everybody's eyes go to when you see these haircuts. And then right behind the ear here, if you draw a line, the back section is the crown. Like I said, in all the classic haircuts, with the exception of the flat top, we like to keep weight in the crown. And then between the crown and the cool hair, those are the corners. That's a place that when I first started cutting hair, I used to have trouble trying to figure out how to blend into the sides. And that's what I see a lot in students of mine. But with this method, it's extremely easy. What we're going to do is I'm going to saturate Mr. Ben's hair here again. Also, throughout the haircut, you're going to see me playing with it almost like it's a fidget toy. Sometimes I take too long doing it. It's something that I personally could be better about, but it's because whatever you can do with water, you can recreate with products. You know, I'm trying to think of the best way of saying this. A good hairstyle starts at a good haircut first, you know. So you can see me playing with it because I want to see what the hair can do, you know. I'll like I said, whatever I can do with water, I'm going to be able to recreate with product, you know. So, and that's why water is one of the most important products we could have. And my client Ben here has incredible hair. He's what I used for my Reuzel audition video, my Reuzel Scumbassador audition video. So when I decided to do this Reuzel live, I knew the person to call. So you can see here, I drew right there at the natural implant of the head, I drew a line to disconnect the cool hair from the rest of that. We're going to leave that alone. We're going to deal with that later. And then behind the ear, we're going to take that and we're going to move that out of the way, and we're going to focus on the corner here. So you saw I took my first section, my baseline section, and I pulled it straight towards me, parallel to the ground, like I was balancing a marble. And I'm going to do the same thing with the top hair, the corner section, into this baseline. I'm going to use thin sections for two different reasons. The reason I'm using thin sections is because I can see my guideline easier that way. Another reason I'm going to use thin sections is if you take a stack of paper and you cut a big ream of paper, it's going to bevel, and you're not going to get an even cut. If you were to take a thinner section of paper and cut it, you're going to get a lot cleaner of a cut. I used to work in printing back in the day before I became a barber, and we used to have this cool machine that could cut a ream of paper in a book at once, and it would always go diagonal. The reason I'm holding this parallel to the floor as well is because with these haircuts, like the pompadour, we're creating weight right here. But if the lower we hold it down, the more weight we're going to get, and it's not going to look like a pompadour. It'll come off looking more like a bowl cut. The higher up we hold it, the less heavy it's going to be. But after I get it, I like to play around with it and see how it naturally flows to the back. Cool. And then we're going to work our way back to the first part of the crown, doing the exact same thing, connecting the crown into our baseline section. Heck yeah. So I just got done preaching about cross-checking. So since I took my horizontal sections and pulled them out like this, I'm going to go back in and double check using vertical and diagonal sections just to make sure. I'm pretty darn sure that I got a perfect haircut already here, but I'm just going to double check because why not. So I'm already seeing a little bit there that I could do a little bit better, just a tiny, teeny bit. I'm good, but I can always be better. Bada bing, bada boom. So I gotta be honest with you guys. Being here today is a dream come true. I've checked off so many dreams off my box this weekend. I know it's kind of cliche to say, like, oh, I'm so glad to be here today, but cutting War Tour this weekend was awesome, and then getting through Reuzel Facebook Live is awesome. Like, I graduated barber school in 2018. I worked at a chain shop first, just to cut my teeth, and then I got really lucky to work with another Scumbassador of ours. The artist formerly known as Cheeseburger Eddie. His name is actually David Brockhoff. He's the one that taught me a lot of the core principles and basics of cutting hair, especially traditionally cutting hair. Just a sidetrack. We're going to do the exact same thing we did on the other side. We're going to disconnect our cool hair, blend the corner down to our baseline, and then blend the crown down to our baseline. Anyways, I think it's very important right out of barber school or cosmetology school to like work in a high-paced chain shop first, just to cut your teeth. But then I got really lucky to find Dave, and then within 2 weeks of working for him, my haircuts improved dramatically. Dramatically. Yeah, I worked for him for a couple of years. He moved away, became a Scumbassador of another location, and Reuzel really needed someone for the DMV area that I'm at now. So I got really lucky. I still auditioned and did everything just like everyone else has to do. But it just goes to show that it doesn't matter how long you do something, you can always get better and learn more, because I thought I was top dog, and like just learning from Dave and cutting under him for as long as I did, until I went to Rotterdam last year and did my Scumbassador training and was around 20 to 50 other people who were just as good, if not better than me, including the people who work at Scorum, and realized that I was a little fish in a big pond, basically, or however the expression goes. And then even over there, I was there for a week. I came back to Frederick, and my haircuts got 10 times better even from that. So it's like, you can always get better. And I was very, very grateful for that opportunity. Being over in Rotterdam was a dream come true. It's really crazy that a blue collar job like cutting hair and being a barber has led me to have so many cool experiences and to, follow so many of my dreams. So like I said earlier, the corner section here, I'm pulling it out and connecting it to my baseline. I'm holding it parallel to the floor, pretending there's a marble right there, and I'm balancing that marble. The floor is lava, and I don't want the marble to fall in it. Awesome. One thing you want to be careful about so there's always your good and your great side. Your good side's usually the side you're not dominant on. Your great side's usually the side you're dominant on. My great side's my right side because I'm right-handed. But also, everybody has a whirl. Some people have two. A whirl is your crown. Back here, it goes in a circle. Ben's grows forward this way, back that way. So if you were to part his hair would part naturally to the right. But because of the hair growing forward this way, sometimes if you cut it symmetrical with the other side or a little short, it'll want to pop out, So that's something you should always keep in mind when you're doing your evaluation and your consultation to the haircut. And also, if a client comes in and they're parting their hair the wrong way, try to explain to them about the crown and the way their hair naturally wants to go, and try your best to get them to wear their hair the way they actually want it to go. The way it naturally wants to, excuse me. A lot of guys who are right-handed want to part their hair to the left because they're right-handed, so they're going to go that way. And they think that's just the way their hair goes, but sometimes if the crown decides other ways, it should go the other way. Alrighty. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to cross check this section here. I can already see in the rough shape of Mr. Ben's haircut here and how it's flowing really naturally and nicely. Cool. Cross check back here. I try my best to do shear to palm for most of the haircut, because anytime I do shear to knuckle, I end up cutting myself. We're all human. All right, so we're moving on to the top section now. We're going to move into the cool hair section. Let me turn this camera a little bit so you can see it better here, just for this one part. So when cutting the top of the hair, there are two different shapes we try to look for. We have the Bart Simpson shape and the Johnny Bravo shape. The Bart Simpson shape, whoops, it's a square shape, but there's no ramp or elevation to it. A lot of your flat tops are like that. You can grow them longer, shorter, however it works best for you. But then there's the Johnny Bravo shape. It's still square. It's just at more a ramped up, elongated shape. You see this a lot with flat tops. So we're not flat tops, pompadours. So what we're going to do here is we're going to find and connect the dots. We're going to connect the hair on the crown with the cool hair here. I'm going to try to maintain most of the length in the crown here. Sorry, in the front here, just because we're trying to get a really cool, ramped up, just big pompadour. All right, so the reason we also start in the back crown is because we've already taken length off the crown when we blended the sides in, you know? Like, I find when I start from the front and cut my way back, sometimes I end up over-directing too much and cutting too much back here. And then I've got a short crown hanging over long hair from all the weight that I created back here. So I'm going to find the hair here in the crown. And I'm going to create the Johnny Bravo ramp shape. Keeping all my length in the front there. And pulling my hair to the center there, using that as my guideline. Cool. And then I'm going to go back on top and just cross check. I like to point cut the top a little bit too, because with point cutting, you're basically knitting the hair, weaving the hair together, if that makes sense. Seeing tiny, tiny, tiny little things here. One of the things that separates a good haircut from a bad haircut is the detail work. So overall, looks great. So I like playing with it, you know, while I'm cutting it. So now let me move this back a little bit. We're going to connect the cool hair with the baseline. Let me explain how we're going to do that. Pretty much all these classic pompadour haircuts, when they're not styled and slicked back, they kind of look just like emo mops. They kind of look like, if anybody here is familiar with Naruto, it kind of looks like Sasuke from Naruto. So we're going to pull the hair down. We're going to find the baseline, and we're going to connect the baseline to our front cool hair section, just like we did on top, but down here. Cutting hair really is just connecting dots. Now, if this was a symmetrical, well, sorry, if this was an asymmetrical haircut, we would just do it on one side. But since this is a symmetrical haircut, we're going to do it on both sides. Bam. Pull down. So you guys can't see this because I'm on live and you're not here in my barbershop with me. The barbershop that I own, Losing Days Barbershop, located here in Frederick, Maryland. But I'm using my mirrors. I've got a mirror right there on this side, and I've got a mirror on that side. Your mirrors are your best friends. They will show all your mistakes. They will like tell on you. Have you ever done a really cool haircut? You think it's awesome, and then you go back and look at it after you took a photo, and you're like, and you can't post it because of that, because you're hyper fixated on the mistake you made. That's why I use my mirrors. You know, I'm always constantly turning my client around, looking in the mirror. So this is the sketch of the haircut. We've done the rough sketch. We're going to now blow dry Mr. Ben's hair, and then we're going to do the refining details. We're going to round the ears with the trimmer. We're going to finish shaping the neckline in. We're going to do any softening on the top. And before we do that, we're going to use two products. The main product we're going to use is the Reuzel Grooming Tonic. This by itself is perfect enough for it, but I want to go and do a little bit more. So I'm going to mix it in with a fiber gel. So the Grooming Tonic by itself, it acts as a heat protectant, and it also creates lift and volume to the hair when I blow dry it. It also comes in a spray bottle. A lot of clients like the spray bottle because it's easier to apply. I like using the spray bottle for more finer, thinner hair. Mr. Ben here has really thick, perfect hair, so I'm using the thicker stuff. And the Grooming Tonic by itself works wonders. It's great, but like I said, we can be good, but I want to be great. And I want his pompadour to really be stiff and thick. So I'm going to use the Reuzel Fiber Gel. The Reuzel Fiber Gel has fibers in it, and the fibers help create pliability and hold and just like kind of bendiness. And I just kind of want that extra mile when I'm creating this perfect pompadour on Mr. Ben's head here. So I'm going to use a pea drop amount of that. And with the Reuzel Grooming Tonic, I'm just going to turn it upside down, let it pour in my hand. I'm not going to squeeze it because you'll use too much if you do. And then I'm going to work from the tips to from the roots to the tips. Sorry. And work all throughout the hair. The reason I'm going to go from the roots to the tips is I do this with any product I use. And it's because if you think about it like a house, you can't build a house without a foundation. If you don't have a foundation, the house is going to blow over as soon as the wind blows it over. Ready.
Hey, Kody.
What's up?
Hey, just jumping on to let you know we have viewers from the US, Canada, Finland, Guatemala, the Philippines, Ukraine, Denmark, and Vietnam. So you have a pretty worldwide audience today.
That's awesome. Heck yeah, that's awesome. All right, so now we're going to do the blow dry. A blow dry is more important than you may think. I'm using a vent brush today just because it blow dries a little quicker, gets it evenly distributed. And I'm going to work my way back forward because you don't want dry hair sitting on top of wet hair. We're going to blow dry the back, behind the ear, flats, and then everything in the front, we're going to get really big. One trick I learned when I was in Rotterdam doing my Scumbassador training is I learned this from the man himself, Pirate Paulus. He's the one that taught me to do everything flat back here and do everything big up here, but he says he likes to kind of create like almost a Superman S in the cool hair section. Another Scumbassador tip I got for you guys is have your client, if you want volume in the front, have your client bend their head down a little bit. A little bit forward me, Ben. You lift it. And don't be afraid to use your hands either, you know. Get up in there, you know. What's the expression that the bigger the hair, the closer to God? Work on the other side now. And I'm also, like I said, don't be afraid to use your hand because you can feel if there's any saturation left in the hair. We want this hair to be as bone dry as possible. Also, something my old mentor, Dave, aka Cheeseburger Eddie Brockhoff, taught me is switch hands if you need to. Like I'm right-handed, so it just feels weird using my right hand on the left side to use the blow dryer. So it feels weird at first, but once you get used to it, you'll notice it's a lot more effective. So I'm going to put the blow dryer on my left hand for the left side. Let's switch over. Like I did earlier, put your head down for me, Ben. I'm going to go through and feel if there's any saturation left in the Ben's hair. A little bit back in the crown. You already see I'm getting a lot of lift from the Reuzel Grooming Tonic. Proper blow drying. And like I said, I want the mile longer extra. I'm really bad at similes. I apologize. And added the fiber gel because I like the stiffness, the bendiness, and the pliability that I get from the fibers in the fiber gel. Now, the next thing I want to do is we're going to switch to my cold air, and I'm going to hit the hair with a cold shot. Think about it like this. When blacksmiths are making swords, metal, whatever, they do things really hot because they can bend and they can shape it, and they dip it in cold water, and the cold water locks it back into place. And that's exactly what we're doing with hair here. Use my cold shot. I'm just hitting it really quickly. I'm very blessed to have a client like Ben who has amazing hair. I'm a good barber, but anybody who cuts hair knows that somebody with good hair makes your job so much easier. Cool. All right, I'm going to stop because if I don't, I'm going to keep playing with it, and I'm never going to stop playing with it. Like I said, hair is almost like a fidget toy to me. I just want to keep messing around with it. Or it's almost like a bag of potato chips. You know, you can't just put it down and stop, and then next you know, they're all gone. So I'm going to move on to my detail work now. Maybe back just a little bit in here. I'm going to just go around the ears with the trimmers, and then we'll taper his neckline in, and then go in with our texturizers and do any texturization or bulk removal if we need to. So with around the ear and the trimmers, I don't like to cut into the natural hairline. I just get what's hanging off. You cut into the natural hairline, you get the little 5 o'clock shadow look. This isn't meant to be a really super clean faded haircut. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just not what we're doing today. I'm just cleaning up whatever's hanging off past the natural hairline. You can even do this with scissors if you want during the winter when Mr. Ben here grows out his fenders. I usually use scissors around the ears. We're just going to get right there with his natural jaw and his beard. Cool. Like I said, so nice. We're going to do it twice on the other side. So before I go in and just like hit the trimmers, one thing I like kind of do is almost like clipper over comb with the trimmers and this the comb here. Just kind of lift any bulk out. And then we'll go in and kind of like clean that line up a little bit more. Heck yeah. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna finish tapering this neckline here. I don't like to taper any higher than this little bone. I mentioned earlier that Mr. Ben's little bone right here pops out severely. So if you take it too short there, it looks like you've got a bald spot in the back of his head. I'm going to do a mixture of clip over comb and guard work back here. Look down for me a little bit then. Awesome. So using my wall clipper comb as a guard, basically, I'm going to kind of just grab my shape, not going into the civil bone there. And I believe the wall clipper comb is equivalent to a 1.5 guard, I want to say, maybe a little bit longer. That's one of the reasons I like using it so much. And when I say a little bit longer, like the bare minimum, like millimeters. Cool. So, like I said, I'm going to use a mixture of clip over comb and guard work. Since this was my 1.5, I'm going to go in with 1.5 guards, kind of clean up any of the bottom here. Most of the time with the Reuzel method, we work our way down instead of up. And the reason we do that is because it removes the guesswork and because we can see what we're doing better. The same way while when we're doing our baseline, we're working our way down from the baseline instead of up because we can see our guideline and we can see what we're doing and we're not getting lost. What's up here? Another thing I'll do sometimes with Ben's hair, I do this more when we cut it a lot shorter or either leave it a lot longer. And it's something I see Rob, aka the Bloody Butcher, doing a lot of his videos. And it's something I also do with my unruly hair clients is I'll go in and kind of freehand sculpt it a little bit. One of the biggest things for me that it took me the longest time to learn with hair is hair, and it's become I come from a background of drawing. Hair is not essentially a 2D art; it's a 3D art form. You're basically sculpting. Sorry, you're basically sculpting. You know, when you're cutting hair. So I got my one guard all the way open, and I'm working my way down with a taper. I got it closed. And most of the time with fading, we're always working against the grain. Ben and a lot of other clients, they have weird whorls and growth patterns in their neck that kind of grow up. So if you're going to go against the grain, then you're going to go work your way down. Zero all the way open to 0.5. Just kind of flicking out a little bit. And honestly, with me and my tapers, especially with I'm tapering into really long hair, like a pompadour, I don't inherently look at it as fading. I look at it more of like I'm erasing, if that makes sense. Like I'm kind of smudging out a line. For those who draw, you know, sometimes you'll do the shading a little bit and you'll go in with an eraser, kind of smudge it out to kind of get that cool shading effect. That's the way that I look at the tapering into long hair. So I guess I am mixing a little bit of 2D art and a 3D art, you know? Your Ben here is a little unruly around his neck, so I'm going to go back in with a trimmer again and clean that up. For those who are in a state or a part of the world where you can't use a straight razor because of your license, one thing you could always do is either use a feather razor or use a box shaver to clean up those lines a little bit. There's always things we miss. I'm already seeing a couple hairs here and there around the ear that I could hit. Yeah.
Hey, Kody.
What's up?
Hey, I asked our viewers what products they'd like to see for this pompadour, and we've got a suggestion of possibly concrete and cocktailing it with the surf cream. But of course, use whatever you were planning on using.
We can do that. I will say what I was going to use, and then we'll switch to doing that. What I plan on using today is just because it's usually what Mr. Ben uses at home, is I was going to use the pink, which is the first Reuzel pomade I ever used with the blue. The pink is the heaviest oil-based pomade we have. What makes it stand out from other oil-based pomades is it's beeswax-based instead of petroleum-based, meaning it's easier to get out of your hair. And the light blue is our heaviest high shine pomade we have. Its primary ingredient is castor oil, which the reason that's a big deal and makes it stand out from other water-based high shine pomades is because it doesn't get hard in your hair and like gets rock hard like gel. I like using cocktailing these in Mr. Ben's hair because it's what he uses at home. So I try to recreate what he uses at home. But if our viewers want to see the concrete and the surf cream, we can definitely do that. Let me grab some off my shelf really quickly. All right, so the concrete, it's got a silver can here. The concrete is a heavy hold matte finish. The difference between it versus using like the gray is if you guys have ever watched Spinal Tap, the gray goes up to 11 instead of 10, whereas this is a 10. And this is a little bit more pliable, where the gray is for the most unruly hair that needs just the strongest hold to it. So if you want a little bit more movement in your hair, then let's use the concrete. And the cool thing about the surf cream is the surf cream is a mixer. I see this is almost like if you're going to a bar and getting a Jack and Coke. This is the Jack to sorry, this is the Coca-Cola to the Jack Daniels. This helps break down product a little bit, makes it a little more grittier and dirty and grungy looking. It's really cool by itself for like surfer looks. You know, I've got a couple clients that have like the Patrick Swayze Point Break haircut, you know, and so I'll put this in their hair and just, when it's just damp and leave it alone and let it air dry. And it looks like they just went surfing for the whole day. Cool thing about the Reuzel pomades is pretty much all of them except for one is cocktailable. The surf cream works great with anything except for anything with fibers in it. Not sure why, but it turns the fibers into cottage cheese. But everything else, that's what's awesome about the Reuzel line is because they're all cocktailable. So I'm going to go in with the concrete first. Now, this is a personal preference. I don't like putting my two fingers in and dip it in the center of the products. I like spinning the tin because you work it evenly and distributes evenly, you know, as you're emptying your can. Put that in my palm. And I'm going to use a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of the surf cream. And just like Nicholas here, I grew up Northwest Florida on the Florida pretty beaches. One thing I love about the surf cream is I don't know how we were able to do this, but it looks just like the white beach sand you see on Florida beaches, which makes the surf cream name so much cooler. So just like I did with my grooming tonic and fiber gel, I'm going to work from my way back from the roots to the tip. A little goes a long way. Start with a little first, and you can always add more if you have to. See, the front here needs a little bit more, so I'm going to grab a little bit more. So just while I'm thinking it, before I forget, while we're on product knowledge, another part of our routine here is after we put products, anytime you put a blade on someone's neck, whether it be a trimmer, clippers, or a straight razor, you want to go in with some form of astringent or aftershave. So since I went in back here with Mr. Ben's neck, I'm going to do this after I'm done shaving his neck after the haircut, but I want to go in with the Reuzel astringent foam. The cool thing about the Reuzel astringent foam is if you have more sensitive skin and you don't like the burn of like a more musky aftershave like we also have in our collection, this is burn free. This is one of the highest selling products I have in my shop. I use it on every single client. Same thing with the grooming tonic. Like I said, it comes in a pretty nice big bottle, comes out as a foam. Don't shake it or it'll come out as a liquid. Just pour it around your hand. Every time you use a blade on a client, like I said, whether it be a straight razor, trimmers, clippers, follow it with the Reuzel astringent foam or the Reuzel aftershave. Let me grab a hair pick real quick. So we've got the product in Mr. Ben's hair here. And now we're going to style it and work it evenly distribute it. I like using a pick first because it helps me sculpt it a little bit. One of the things I learned when I was doing my Scumbassador training in Rotterdam is I used to really try to comb things down really tightly and wasn't getting any volume. I was taught to kind of treat it like a helicopter. You know, when a helicopter takes off, a helicopter lifts up and then takes off. An airplane goes up like that. So I'm going to go and treat it like it's a helicopter. I'm going to lift up. This is more pleasant for your client because you're not pulling their hair. But it also helps you get more shape in your haircut. one of the things I see online a lot is people always saying like, oh, they can't recreate that at home. 9 times out of 10, once I've taught my client how to put the product in their hair properly, I tell them where to get a comb from, or not a comb, a pick, I'm sorry, then they're usually able to do it just as good, if not better than I can at their home. You can also use the pick to kind of lift it a little bit. Also, as long as you give them a good haircut, they should be able to recreate what you do at home as well. Like I mentioned earlier, the basis of a good hairstyle is a good haircut. If you give someone a bad haircut and try to cover it up with product, they're going to blame it on the product, not on you, because they're going to trust you. So it's our job as barbers to make sure we give a good haircut that tapers the client's natural head shape and hair growth patterns. So I'm taking my comb. I like using the Cricut combs. Rake through a little bit, get my defining details. Ben's got such nice hair. One thing I like doing with these hairstyles, the pompadours, is Ben's hair likes going to the right. So I'm going to kind of go into the left a little bit and then bring it over. I mentioned earlier that Pirate Paulus taught me when blow drying to kind of do Superman S. I'm going to kind of do that with my combing. So we're going to bring it over and then back over the way it naturally wants to go. And this creates kind of like an S shape in the front. And if you look at a lot of old pictures of Johnny Cash and Elvis, they do this with their hair. It's something you see Rob, the Bloody Butcher, doing a lot of his haircut demonstrations. And man, it looks so cool. I don't know what else to say. So the styling, I'm going to go back and forth between using my comb and pick. I'm going to grab my pick again, just to get a little bit more lift and to smooth it out. And one thing you can do is kind of like you're sanding something down or you're smoothing out a clay figure. If you take your pick and just kind of smooth out the haircut, you get a really cool finish. Also, if you take the front and lift it and push it forward at the same time, you can get some volume that way. And this is also part of the, you got to know when to walk away at some point, because I'll get it almost perfect, if not perfect, and then I'll mess it up by keep combing and styling and picking at it. So there's just some point you got to get your photo finished appearance and just walk away from it. Heck yeah. And that is a classic pompadour.
Looking good, Kody. Looking good. Any final words?
Thanks, Nick. No, is there any questions?
No questions the whole time. People have just been watching you and supporting you, sharing all kinds of love. Feel free to go check it out on Facebook whenever we're done. If you don't have anything, I got some final things as far as classes and events that are coming up, and then we'll get out of here. All right.
Cool.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks for hanging out with us today for Kody's live stream for his Reuzel haircut demonstration. Upcoming events, we've got a classics class at the Denver Academy, June 22nd and 23rd. Join us out there next weekend, this upcoming weekend, followed by the launch of the inaugural Classics 2 class, a brand new class we've been working on all year at the Denver Academy, July 20th and 21st. And our next Facebook Live event is going to be the one and only Uncle Ronnie, coming to you live from Rotterdam on June 30th. So just 2 weeks away, 1 to 2 weeks away, we'll have another live Reuzel live presentation on Facebook. And that's all we got right now. So thanks for hanging out with us on Monday, and we will see you next time.